Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast, everybody. This is episode 44. I'm your host, Christian Brindle. I'm joined with my co-host, Glen Shelton. And we got a freaking awesome show for you guys today. We got discussions on the Trump. I'm not even remembering the terminology.
Start off so strong, and then
I'm not even remembering the terminology.
Just drove into a brick wall.
Executive action,
so strong.
Right? Executive action,
so strong, and then just executive order.
Executive order. Thank you.
To cut the limit that was previously put in place on prescription drugs. That's going to be the main topic.
That is
later in today's episode.
Topic today, my friends. Let me start with this morning, however, and that is how much delayed gratification does it take to become massively successful? This is something that's not talked about, I feel like, enough. I've talked about it a lot, but you have to, in my opinion, be willing to delay rewarding yourself for as long as possible when you're trying to become massively successful. I think this is a really, really good topic. Glenn, what are your thoughts on delayed gratification? Like what's ridiculous? What's too much?
Yeah, let me ask you a question because I do love this topic. Have you ever done the marshmallow test with Violet before?
No, I don't think so.
Do you know what the marshmallow test is?
No, I do not.
Oh my gosh.
Please educate me on the marshmallow test.
Send help to the Seven Figures or Bust podcast. We need to educate Mr. Brindle here. So the marshmallow test is like the boiled down, condensed, simplified version of delayed gratification. Okay. I want you to try this with Violet this weekend. You're gonna report back Monday. Okay, you're gonna report back Monday. I'll do it again with I did it with my kids a long time ago. It's probably been 5, 6, 7 years. So I'll do it again too. We'll talk about the results on Monday. But
okay,
the marshmallow test is set her down at the kitchen table, put a plate in front of her, put the marshmallow on the plate, and you say, "Hi, Violet. I'm gonna leave the room for 5 minutes. If you choose not to eat this marshmallow while I'm gone, when I get back in 5 minutes, I'll give you another one. But you have to sit here for 5 minutes and look at this marshmallow in front of you."
It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen.
She'll eat it, you think?
I'd bet my kidney on it.
You bet your kidney. Okay. It was interesting. When I did this like 5 or 6 years ago, my daughter was very little. She was like 2 or 3. She did not wait. She was very little. But my oldest did wait because he wanted that second marshmallow.
And how old was your oldest at the time?
He was probably like 6 or 7.
Okay, so Violet's 5. She'll be 6 in about 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she'll surprise me, but I will try it.
Yeah, I'm super. Yeah, I am curious. But again, this is like the simplified, condensed version of delayed gratification, right? Most kids are obsessed with marshmallows. I mean, if I left a bag of marshmallows out, my kids will literally eat the whole bag of marshmallows. I kid you not, they're obsessed. So it's like the simplified way of being like, hey, you can get double if you wait. And just like, investing or business, it's the same way, right? You don't pull that money out. You leave that money in. It over a period of time, it will probably double, right?
Right. And so I think this is super interesting. It's so common that I'll see someone break into the scene, right? They work hard for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Maybe they build up a business that is making $200,000 a year, let's say.
Yeah.
$250,000 a year. And all of a sudden they're buying every toy they can find, right? They're buying cars, they're buying houses. And I know some of you might be like, Christian, you just bought a house. You just got a car. But if you guys only knew the behind the scenes of how long it got to ridiculous to the point where Glenn had to sit me down and be like, dude, like you're driving a clunker. I'm like, dying depreciable asset is a car. Dying depreciable asset. And
oh my gosh.
But I did not buy, you know, a very nice house. I had a decent house always. But like I didn't have like the house I have today, nor did I have the car I'm driving today until I was in my year 11 practically
Right.
of the business, and the business was in the multiple seven-figure range.
I was going to say, yeah, your net worth was already over 7 figures. So
Yes.
yeah,
And
that's
like
delayed gratification.
I remember having a conversation with a mutual friend a couple years ago. I was about to go on a vacation, and I was going to spend more on going on the vacation than I had ever spent with my family before. We were going to go for 2 weeks, Hilton Head, South Carolina. And I remember I was on the phone with our mutual friend Joe Trottola, right? If any of you know Joe
Shout
Trottola,
out Joe.
he was the creator of the Medicare Mentors Facebook group. You know, he's kind of off the grid now these days, but I still keep in touch. I really like Joe. And you know, Joe, I remember Joe telling me, we were talking about cars and about how I believe that a car is a terrible investment, which it is, by the way. It 100%
It
is.
is.
It
Yes.
Anybody that doesn't get this is broken. You know what I mean? Like, you're broken. A car, every car goes to zero when you drive it. Every
Yes.
single car. People are like, what about collectible cars? Drive them, they'll go to zero. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't care.
I
Like,
guess there's an argument to be made there if it's like a rare collectible car. There's like, it's like a one of a kind car, but that's like that's the exception, not the rule here.
but even at that, right? Like, let's say you drive it enough and it gets screwed up, it gets scratched up, like it starts, the
Yeah.
wear and tear happens.
Right.
Its value naturally goes down, no matter how
True.
much of a collectible it is. Engine goes out eventually, 500,000 miles into it or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, that is the fact with cars. There is stupid investment, right? Like, if you spend a bunch of money on a nice car versus spending that on your business, it's no comparison. The car is never going to get you anything back. Now, on the flip side, you need at least a reliable car to get you where you need to go for, to run your business, right? You're going to appointments, whatever the
Right.
case might be. You need that, but you don't need like a super fancy car to do that. And that was where my mind was at, right? For years, I would not let go of that. Same goes with the house, right? Like, people are like, oh, the house, you put money in the house, it appreciates in value. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't pay me every month. My business pays me every month. Right. So, like,
I feel strongly about that one. And that's one that I think a lot of people will fight on, is
they will.
home ownership. Yeah.
By the way, I sold my first home after living in it for 3 years. It was just perfect random timing of the market. And, we put no money down on it because it was the first home. We qualified for some first time homeowners program. Lived in it for 3 years. It was brand newly built, sold it, and we did amazingly well on that. And it shocked me.
Nice.
We did great.
I remember you telling me about this.
But that being said, still, it's not as good of an investment into my business, my business, right? Like, so here's the question, I think, with this topic: delaying gratification, right? Like, not going on expensive vacations, not dumping money into real expensive cars, not buying big houses, right?
Right.
Where's the balance for that? Because for me, when I see people that are making, 80 grand a year, 100 grand a year, 150 grand a year, 200 grand a year, and they're dumping money onto things, and I know it's taking a lot of their money just because I've been at that income status myself.
Yeah.
I just think to myself, I'm like, that's really stupid. That's dumb. That's short-sighted. Like, you're giving into your desire for rewarding yourself in a sense. But what's the real number, Glenn? What's the real number on this? Like, what's the real trajectory of when you can start rewarding yourself?
Yeah, I don't know if there is like a one size fits all number per se. This does go back. I keep thinking about the conversation we had the other day, though, about talking about investments, talking about the stock market, right? We really kind of worked through this idea of, yes, you can put money into the stock market. You can have conservative investments, annuities, etc., where you could get set up where you're taking home 5 to 10% year over year, every year. You're making money. Hopefully you're beating inflation, right? But, you know, what about how much of an ROI you can get on your business? And this delayed gratification thing kind of comes back to the same concept for me. You know, whether you're doing something, you know, you can justify a lot of things. Like you could justify buying a fancy car to say, hey, I'm trying to impress my clients, I'm trying to impress other agents. You can justify, you know, getting a house saying, hey, over time, this house is going to appreciate, hopefully, you know, and I'll get X amount return on my money. But again, your highest ROI is still going to most likely be your business. So it's hard for me as a business owner to justify putting money into all these other places. But I think it does get to a point where everyone should start to reward themselves, like you're saying. Well, what is that number though? I don't know. I do think, you know, I think the 7-figure net worth, once you get over 7 figures in net worth, yes, this is the 7 Figures or Bust podcast, but when you get north of 7 figures, I think it becomes easier to take that expensive vacation, to get that car, to get the house without hurting your business, without taking away an ROI from your business. So I don't know if there's a magic number, but if I was talking to an agent, they were asking like genuine advice on this, I would say, hey, don't worry about that stuff until, you know, your book of business or, you know, your income stream, until you're confident your net worth is north of 7 figures. I also think a good gauge, a good rule of thumb that I feel like you and I have been using is, what's the tax man asking of us?
Yes.
You know, and once the tax man shows up at your door and he's got a big empty sack, and he's like, put your money in here. That's when it's like, hey, maybe we should start rewarding ourselves and paying less in taxes. You know,
every time we talk about what we're paying in taxes, people are like, you're flexing. I'm like, I would rather not be doing this. Like, I don't want to be. This is not a flex. This is a complaint.
Yeah.
This is a depression, right?
Yes.
That's going on inside of me right now, swirling like a hurricane.
Yep.
But no, yeah, people lose their minds when we talk about the taxes we're paying. I find it hysterical. That's why I kept doing it over and over and over again.
You can't, I mean, you can get around it if you're willing to really bend the rules. You know, you've got, you know, overseas LLCs like some of the big boys are doing, right? But 95% of business owners I know, they're paying lots in taxes because that's what you have to do. You have to. That's the rule. That's the game.
I think, okay, so here's how mine works. And I think it just depends on, I think, who you are and what your goals are in business, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I think, like, you know, people look at where I'm at now, and, you know, last year I bought a big house. People were like, wow, that's great. You know, 8 bedrooms, 4,500 square feet, you know, 3 stories. Like, I love our house. It's great. But that being said, there were other houses we were looking at that were more expensive that I was like, I don't want to spend that much. You know, I even still had that. And I feel like depending on what your goals are, the longer you delay gratification, the farther you can go. You know, I lived below my means for so many years. So many years, you know, like, I drove the same car for 10 years. It was paid off. It ran. I didn't care. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't care. Now, maybe you could argue that hurt me in business because I'd go somewhere and they'd be like, what the fuck are you driving? Sure. Fair enough. But apparently it didn't hurt me that much, right? Because we've done very well.
Right.
I think the longer you can delay gratification, the farther you can go. And I think it depends on your tolerance, I think, to discomfort and to give in to your complacency, right? In some ways, I'm still trying my best. It's harder and harder these days, but I'm trying my best to delay as much gratification as possible. Because I'm a believer that, putting as much as we can back into the business will help the business. It'll help everybody. But not only that, on my personal finances, I want to put as much as I can into investments and things like that, and I don't want to. There's so many people that I've heard stories about or have seen personally. Like clients are a great example. You guys have all seen this, I'm sure. Clients that made good money for a long time, 20 years, 30 years. They're making,
Right.
let's say multiple six figures, but they spend like crazy. And then when it comes time for them to retire, they're like, like I don't have that much left, that I feel like I should have.
The MC Hammer effect.
Yes,
The
yes, yes,
MC
yes.
Hammer. Too legit to quit. He was making like at his prime. It was, and this was like the 80s, or he was making millions of dollars a month, and then it just went off a cliff. And he was like, he had an entourage. He was paying for all these people to travel, to be around him. He had the cars, the mansions, like. But yeah, strategically, it wasn't there. I do think there's another layer to this that I've been thinking about. It's like you kind of have to believe too that things will grow down the road. Like you have to understand, because again, that instant gratification is taking what you're seeing right now. You plant the tree, it's not quite fully grown. Maybe you harvest, maybe you wait. You have to really, there's a belief here. Like you have to believe it's going to grow, it's going to get better, it's going to get bigger. And you have to really hold on to that. And I think that's something that's motivated me, is like, well, every year for the past 6, 7, 8 years now, my business has significantly grown. I'm going to go ahead and believe that trend's going to continue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like, you're not doing it. You're not delaying gratification for nothing. You're delaying gratification with the faith and the belief that long term,
Amen.
you'll be way farther along than you would be if you just went nuts right now.
Yes, 100%.
And, I think there's also levels to this, right? Like, where I'm at right now, getting a new car or getting a new house is not the same type of, financial, tightness on me as it would be if I was making 200,000 a year. If I was making
Right.
200,000 a year, and that was the entirety of what I was making,
That's a lot of money.
It'd probably take
That's a
all my
lot of
money.
money. Yeah.
Probably
Down payment, your mortgage, the car payment. You're talking about
kids.
a significant portion of what you're trying to pay yourself from your business. And then you don't want to get into that spot where it's like, well, I've got to cover my personal expenses. And so then it's like, what? You're gonna strangle the business? You're gonna strangle the cash flow of the business because you've got to cover your own personal expenses because of your instant gratification that you chose. Like that's a tough decision to make, if that's ultimately what someone ends up doing. Guys, I want to talk about today's sponsor before we get too much further into the episode.
Yes.
Today's 7-Figure or Bust episode is brought to you by Lead Heroes, your favorite senior insurance lead provider. Right now, we have a special promotion going on to kickstart 2025 in a big way. It is our Turning 65 leads. You can get them for almost 50% off, exclusive, not shared, FCC compliant, allowing you to contact seniors who are 2 to 5 months approximately from turning 65. These, in my opinion, are some of the best Medicare leads you can get your hands on. So if you are interested in getting some Turning 65 leads from Lead Heroes, do not wait. This special promotion expires next Tuesday, January 28th at midnight. So you just have a few days left to pick up some of these Turning 65 leads. Again, that is leadheroes.com, leadheroes.com.
Let's shift gears into the main topic at hand. And I think it's a doozy of a topic, right? So
First, I want to talk. Hang on.
Okay.
First, I want to talk about Trump dancing, you guys. I want to talk about his dance video. I was watching some inauguration videos last night. It wasn't just Christian was before the show. Christian was like, "That's his YMCA dance." It was not the YMCA play. It was not the Y, but this is it. He's got like this one move. I'm just like, who's like, someone's got to tell this dude. Like, I don't know what this is. I don't know what this is. It's like, that or this.
I've seen all kinds of clips and things circulated online the last 6 months of him doing that or doing this, or anything like that, and people love it.
That's the other one.
People love it.
They love it. Oh, I know they do. But it's crazy. I'm just like, let's teach them. Let's get some disco in there. Like, let's go.
How old is Trump? 70? 71? 72?
78. He's going to be 82.
Why didn't I know that? Oh, yeah, you're right.
By the end.
Yeah, because I knew he was close in age to Biden. Biden was like, what, 81, 82? Yeah. So at his age, is it possible to learn new dance moves?
I think so. Someone get this to Trump, please. I want him to bust out some new moves. I think the country needs it right now.
So, okay. So what's going on, right?
Yes.
I'll read you guys a headline. On January 21st, 2025, I believe one day after inauguration, President Donald Trump signed an executive order rescinding several initiatives from the previous administration aimed at reducing prescription drug costs and for Medicare and Medicaid beneficiaries. This action halted efforts such as capping co-payments for generic medications at $2 and programs to lower payments for drugs that received accelerated FDA approval. The rollback has raised concerns about potential increases in prescription drug prices for beneficiaries. Okay, so I have several thoughts on this, but before I get into that, what was your initial reaction to this yourself?
I mean, I'm a free market capitalist at heart, you guys. I'm not going to hide it. I do believe that in a perfect world, the market can autocorrect to what is best for the consumer. If someone is grossly overcharging for a prescription drug, I'd like to believe another provider will come in and undercut them to get the business and take a lower margin. And I'll give you a great example of someone who is doing this right now, Mark Cuban. Shout out to one of the greats out there. He has Cost Plus Drugs, I believe is the name of his company. And he's trying to take a completely transparent approach. He doesn't have every single drug available through this company yet, but he has a huge plethora of drugs. And essentially he's saying, hey, this is the cost to manufacture. We're going to charge 10% because we got to make some money, right? Again, capitalism, but it's totally transparent. And I've heard nothing but great things about that approach. So I don't like the idea that the government thought they needed to come in and be like, hey, you have to make this drug and it has to be done at this price point or else, I'm not a fan of that type of regulation. That is just, too much in my opinion.
So to clarify, right? Because I saw a lot of chatter about this in the online communities. Lots of you guys are talking about this, which is why we're talking about it. But I saw one person in particular say, he's repealing the Inflation Reduction Act. This has nothing to do with the Inflation Reduction Act. Let me clarify that, right? Like
say it twice for the kids in the back.
This has nothing to do with the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, the man's been president since Monday. So there's probably a lot that's going to come preceding all of these actions, right? Like what we're seeing is not the end result. That's my thought process. I think they very well might have looked at the way that the Biden administration was going about doing this and being like, well, that's dumb. That's not going to work. Like, because you see the domino effects of everything they tried to do, right? They tried to limit prescription drug costs through the Inflation Reduction Act to some of these other, some of these other bills and decisions and things like that. But what the end result was, at least as of today, is it saved, I've said this many times as well, it saved 5% of Medicare beneficiaries on their prescriptions, costs a lot of them more. And if it wasn't affecting them on their prescription drug costs, there was a domino effect of their plans deteriorating.
Yes.
Right? So was this really a good thing for the Medicare beneficiary? I would say no, because the vast majority of them end up with less benefits at the end of the day, and a very small percentage of them end up paying a little bit less on prescription drug costs. I think there's got to be a happy medium. It wouldn't surprise me at all if, as you know, in addition to this, as we go along, they put out new bills, new rulings, new proposals that tackles the problem, but in a way that's more friendly to the insurance companies, so they don't have to cut benefits all across the board. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think. Now, that being said, there's always the argument of the pharmaceutical companies, right? The pharmaceutical companies get away with murder, kind of
Right.
thing.
You hear those stories. So and so marked up. Didn't Martin Scarelli go to jail over this?
Yes.
Yeah, Martin Scarelli. I don't. Feel free to Google his name, you guys. But Pharma Bro is what his nickname was. Essentially, he bought a company that had a cancer drug, and then the second he bought it, he marked it up like 12,000%. And basically, his whole thing was like, people are going to pay this because if they don't, they're going to die from the cancer that this drug helps cure, helps fight. So, stories like that capture headlines, and the masses are like, this is criminal. And obviously there's a lot of other drugs besides, a cancer drug where you've seen things like this happen. I want to talk about specifically though. I mean, that's very, I think that topic is very spicy, very spicy. The idea of a pharmaceutical company potentially having a life-saving drug, charging a bunch of money for it just because they can. That's a very spicy topic. But I want to go back to what you just said about the deterioration of beneficiaries' plans, specifically the benefits of those plans, because that's exactly what we've seen pretty much from the second the Inflation Reduction Act went into law. It's just been a nosedive
all over the country.
All over the country.
And there's always going to be this one agent that's, in the woods of Kansas, if Kansas has woods, and they're like my plans are unimpacted. We have 10 people in our county. It's not. It's far and wide.
Congratulations, yeah. Congratulations to you.
It's far and wide, but sure, are there a couple of areas that might not be as impacted as others? Sure, but for the most part, the mass majority of Medicare beneficiaries on Medicare Advantage plans in particular saw their plans get worse in at least a couple of ways during AEP. And they didn't like it.
Yep. And explain, this is what I've been told before too. I'm sure you probably know the answer to this, but I've been told that by law, these Medicare insurance companies must be profitable. That they can run, I was told before that they can run at a loss for like 2 years. And then after 2 years, they must be profitable. And I think the reason there's rules in place for this is they don't want a giant healthcare insurance provider to default and all of a sudden, all these beneficiaries don't have health coverage. So I think they have very strict rules about it in place. So you have on one hand, the government's telling health insurance companies, you must be profitable because you need to pay claims and take care of these beneficiaries. But then the left hand is saying, by the way, even though this drug is costing you $2,000, you have to sell it for $30. I mean, it's like you're shooting them in the leg almost like that. They have to make up that money somewhere. Again, this is a for-profit entity. Like they have to be profitable. So yeah, I mean, it's disturbing. Honestly, I can't stand it.
In my opinion, right? Like I think you can certainly point to prescription drug manufacturers, having high cost of prescriptions and doing whatever they want unchecked, et cetera, et cetera. And you can point to that and be like, yeah, it's a real problem. I don't think anyone would deny that it's an actual problem. But like most things that are actual problems, when the government gets involved to fix them, they usually come up with the most, stupid solutions possible that
Yeah.
end up causing more problems. It doesn't completely fix the problem, but then new
Yeah.
problems are birthed as a result, right? So, I
Right.
mean, in general, I'm in favor of some type of rules, some types of regulations to keep insurance companies in check, to keep prescription
Right.
drug manufacturing in check. But at the same time, I think they should be not so extreme. And like you said, let free market do what it's going to do, because free market
Yes.
always comes out on top, right? If someone's providing bad service, a bad product, or, whatever the case might
Overcharging.
be,
Yeah.
bad business for whatever reason,
Right.
at at some point in time, something will birth that solves that problem. Some entrepreneur will look at this and be like, this is crazy. And they'll put out some kind of product or
Right.
service that will solve the problem. And it will make those other companies either adjust or go out of business eventually, right?
Yeah.
Now, so I think that's a better way to handle it. It's not that the government should do nothing necessarily, but what they have tried to do, it hasn't worked. It's not working.
It feels to me like it was a headline to grab votes from
Yeah.
the senior bloc, right?
It was
It
used in
sounds,
debates. It was used in debates.
yeah, yeah, it was, and it sounds great. It sounds great. Just like on paper, communism sounds great. Read the manifesto. It sounds great. It doesn't work, but it sounds great. And this whole idea of, limiting the cost of drugs and forcing healthcare providers to eat the losses on some of these pharmaceutical drugs, so that way the beneficiary is not affected. It sounds great on paper, but just like what Christian said, you're talking about a small percentage of beneficiaries that actually saved. And overall, those plan benefits have been deteriorating year over year. And this last year during AEP, for sure, this was the worst yet as far as that
Mhm.
deterioration goes. But yeah, I think that's what it feels in my bones when I really think about this from the politician's point of view. You know, the Inflation Reduction Act, the Democrats, the liberals, the idea that, hey, we're capping drug costs. This is a good thing for the people. In theory, it is. It sounds good. But then mechanically, you have to see it all the way through. Like if I was a politician, right, left, middle, I would really want to try to understand the whole system top to bottom. So if I do deploy something like that, why don't we see how it affects the entire food chain, right?
Mhm.
It seems bonkers to me that these people that are running the government, that nobody stepped in and was like, hey, if you do this, if you cap drug prices, this is probably what's going to happen in the market. Maybe that did happen, but they said, we don't care. And they did it anyway. I don't know. But it just seems like there would be more thought behind it, I guess. This episode of the Seven Figures or Bust podcast is brought to you by the Seven Figure University. SevenFigureUniversity.com is a culmination of Christian Brindle's and mine's educational videos that we have developed over the past 2 decades of combined experience in the senior insurance space. There's more than 250 videos, hundreds of hours of content that can help you become a top producer or a top producing agency in the senior insurance space. We're talking about videos of how to work with specific carriers, how to do different types of marketing, such as seminars or Facebook advertising, how to generate content in the niche to help grow your business, how to grow an agency, all sorts of things. There's so much value in this. It's unbelievable. Christian, what do agents need to know about Seven Figure University?
Seven Figure University can best be thought of as an agency blueprint in a box that's put together for you, that brings you step by step in every facet of building a successful seven-figure insurance agency, and lays it out all in front of you so you can follow along. Whether you guys need help with marketing, whether you guys need help with branding, whether you guys need help with hiring, training, standard operating procedures, systems and processes, automation, you name it, it's covered in this course. Not only that, you get access to my weekly training calls every Thursday that go from January through the end of September on a week to week basis. And you can attend those live and ask questions live. And then, of course, the recordings are put into the university afterward if you can't attend it and make the live training. So there's just so much value. It's the gift that keeps on giving, and it's a great investment into your business to kind of keep you up to date on what's going on, but also kind of point you in the right direction in various things that you're struggling with.
Some of the best training you'll be able to find, you guys, in one spot for one price. Go to sevenfigureuniversity.com and learn more.
Let's get back to the show. I remember every single time they passed something new that had to do with capping these drug costs or, sticking it to the insurance companies or Inflation Reduction Act, $2,000 cap, everything like that, I was very loudly and publicly saying this will hurt Medicare beneficiaries long term. It will. I was predicting this would happen. A monkey could see it happening if you have just a finite understanding of our industry. You don't have to be me necessarily or someone that's, does this for a living so extensively, right? Like, it doesn't take that much to figure that out. Right. But I think it's a combination. I think some people involved have genuinely no understanding of how things work.
Too. I believe that too.
On the flip side, I think the people that do have an understanding know what will happen long term, but they're thinking, okay, this doesn't go into effect till January 1st, 2025, and it's good headlines, and we can win an election basically.
Right.
And
we'll deal with the fallout later. We
right.
just want let's
get
the
votes.
Get the votes. Yeah, kick the can down the road. We're gonna get the votes now. We'll figure out how bad this whole thing was that we just did later. Yeah. I genuinely believe that's the situation because I don't believe, it's possible. It's scary to think. It's possible to think that maybe the people at the top are that ignorant to the situation, right? When they deploy policy like this and they're just like, hey, we're helping people, like maybe. But I think it's more likely, hey, this could be harmful. We're not exactly sure yet, but most likely we're going to see some bad things come from it. But we're going to get the votes now, and then we'll figure it out later. That's too bad. It really is too bad. I would love to have more transparency when something like this goes into effect, where we're just getting a better understanding. I'd love for them to really explain it to the people. Don't just give me the headline. Tell me why mathematically. Show me the receipts. Show me the facts on how this is actually going to benefit beneficiaries as a whole, because it hasn't. It 100% hasn't, in my opinion.
So here's a follow-up question to that. How do they go about doing that if they don't understand it themselves?
We need an insurance agent in the office. I've said this before. I'll say it again here on the pod right now. We need an agent somewhere high up in the food chain who can represent us. There's some great groups we've talked about, I think, on the pod already that do help represent in Washington. But man,
shout out to Hoffa.
Shout out to Hoffa, NABIP. There's some really, really big agents and agencies
doing more. Fairness.
I would agree. But there's some really respectable people on both sides of those organizations that I look up to, who I know are genuinely trying to make things better, and I love that. But man, I would love to have an agent on the inside. It would be awesome to have someone high up that was like, hey, this person was an insurance agent for 20 years before they got into politics. Like that. That's what I want. I want the insurance agent. Yeah, that would be epic.
The first insurance agent politician.
Yes.
Maybe that's my destiny, you guys.
Maybe Governor of Utah. Watch out. Christian Brindle, governor of Utah, and then on to the White House. I think that's That's what we're going to see.
The most unpolitically correct governor of all time. You know? You want to do what? Fuck that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I think that would definitely be helpful. It's tricky, right? I think the best we can do as agents and people that are looking out for the best interest in our beneficiaries, like what we really tried to do during AUP was educate and communicate what was going on. I made videos, we email blasted videos out about explaining the Inflation Reduction Act, explaining what it was doing, basically. I had one client reach back out to me and they're like, seems like you have a political agenda in the way you're phrasing this. I'm like, no, I'm just telling you what's going on. Like, and this person in particular, their plan was just getting ravaged. Like it was falling off a cliff. And I'm like, do I have a political agenda? Have you seen your plan? I'm like, you don't want to know why this is happening? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
your MOOP went up by $1,000. Your dental got cut completely. Your over-the-counter item benefit got cut in half. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Your hospital copay's up. Your specialist copay's up. Like, and you're like, they got my best interest in mind, this current administration. He's being political. My plan's fine. Which, if you think that, fine. I don't care. Stay with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No skin off my nose. But I think as agents, like that's the best thing we can do is try to be a voice of education and reason in these types of things.
Bipartisan, just try to give people the facts. Again, this kind of ties back to the claim headlines that were really spicy, where, and they were essentially, the big media was trying to put blame on big healthcare, saying, they're not paying claims. And while some of the stats behind claims not getting paid is true, the reality is it's mostly errors, mostly billing errors. Christian did a really great breakdown on that.
Not only that, right? Like there's no clarity, like on the UHC headlines that we saw over and over and over again, right? Like they're just trying to destroy UHC. You could tell. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But you look at the statistics they were showing with that, right? The 33% of claims. What is that? Is that Medicare Advantage? Is that Medicare Supplement? I doubt it's Medicare Supplement. Medicare Supplement just mirrors Medicare. Is it group plans? Is it ACA plans? Like, you don't know. It's probably even one segment of their type of plans, right? It's probably their group health plans or their ACA plans. And then, they're just saying in general, right? Blanket statement, all their plans kind of thing. Which, and again, I think, to Glen's point, so many of these things are provider caused errors. You don't get a pre-authorization done. It's your job to do so. The client goes out of network. They signed up on the TV with, Joe Namath or Jimmy JJ Walker, right? That doctor wasn't checked or they were lied to, said their doctor was at network when they weren't. They don't get a referral. They didn't know they needed one, right? The specialist didn't say anything. Hey, Mrs. Jones, you can't come in for your appointment until you get your referral. No, they see him anyway. Don't say a word. And they're like, here's your bill for $3,000, Mrs. Jones. Thanks for coming. Using the wrong billing code, you came in. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, someone Mike commented, said 10-second sound bites and sensationalism sells.
Yes.
And unfortunately, Mike, I really think this is just going to continue to get worse. People love the headlines. They love those 10-second sound bites. It's brutal. It really is.
It comes back to the ever shrinking attention span of the public.
Goldfish.
Yeah. And I think you have, as much as I love social media platforms, I think you have social media platforms to thank for that, but you have largely social media platforms like TikTok. Do I want to say it right? Like, it's
they're
short,
listening.
like,
Be careful. TikTok's listening.
Sorry, Chinese government.
We're sorry.
We're sorry.
We're sorry.
We believe in what you're doing over there.
We
Not really.
support.
Not really. But, it sounds good. 10-second
It
soundbite,
sounds,
right?
yeah,
You can
there
take
you
that
go.
10-second
Someone rip that.
soundbite
Yeah,
and send it
rip
to
that.
someone.
Someone rip like, Christian supports Chinese communism. Run it, baby. Run it. Send it to the top. I'm gonna pull that. I'm gonna pull that out what you're trying. You're like, whoa. What's
Wow.
going on here? This is
Agents are like, I
wild.
need a release.
We're getting termed. We're getting contracts termed. It's like, we don't
Goes
support
viral,
Chinese
100 million
communism.
views on TikTok.
Oh
No
my!
less.
TikTok.
but no, I think it's people's attention spans are just you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
and you see it in every aspect of life. I mean, when we run ads or anything like that, we always have that in mind, right? When we're running any type of advertisement for something, like if I'm sending a mass email out about something, there's been several times where we're sending a mass email out to clients or agents or whatever the case might be, and
they don't read it.
I'll look at I'll look at the email and I'll be like, this is too long. No one's going to read all this. And I'm like, we need to cut it in half or a third or something like that. Say the same thing, but cut it in a third,
Yep.
And that's unfortunately seems like the world we're living in these days.
Yeah. I think people love to, there's this quote from Denzel Washington. He's like, if you watch the news, you're misinformed. If you don't watch the news, you're uninformed. So it's like, it's like what's worse is like being fed these sensational headlines where, you think, or you get that 10-second sound clip, you think you know what's going on, or being completely ignorant to what's going on. You have to really kind of dig down. And again, it doesn't necessarily you don't have to have a PhD. Christian, I think, gave a really great example about, how he already had an idea of the Inflation Reduction Act is going to cause harm long term. Christian's not a poli-sci major that I'm aware of. I don't think he is anyways. So, political science major. Again,
fast.
You pull it out. You're like, boom, check it out, everybody. I'm a political science doctorate. But I had very similar feelings when the government started printing cash, post COVID, during COVID.
Yeah.
And everyone acted like, oh, this will be fine. I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen when we dump trillions and trillions of dollars into the money supply. And there's these articles coming out of people saying, oh, as long as the dollar has somewhere to go, it shouldn't cause serious inflation. And I'm just like, man, this seems like textbook inflation to me.
Yeah.
Dumping money into the supply like that.
I mean, and like, it's just simple economics, right? You have more of something available, it goes down in value. Yep. Right? Like the more of something's available. It's like I use this analogy when this first happened, when they started printing money. Man, I can't believe how long I've been making videos for you guys. But I remember talking about this, and I remember saying, like, it's like a classic car where there's only 10 in the world that were made versus a car where there's 10 million that were made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, which one's more valuable? Probably the one where there's only 10 in the world, right?
Yep.
Same goes for our dollar, right? The more of it that's out there in circulation, the less valuable it is, right? Like, and yeah, I think there's so many places that I could go with this.
Let's circle back. Let's circle back. We have gotten a little off topic. So this Trump executive order on limiting, essentially axing the limit on prescription drug prices. Speculate for a minute here as we get towards the top of the hour. How do you think this change will affect the Medicare industry specifically going into, say, AEP 2026?
Well, I'd hate to be accused of speculating once again. I don't let things go.
Educational, speculational, baby.
So yeah. So if I was to, look into my crystal ball, if you will, and take a guess, I don't think it's a huge change necessarily, right? Like, because Inflation Reduction Act's still there, $2,000 cap is still there. A lot of what was in the Inflation Reduction Act is still there. But maybe it, loosens the stranglehold on the carriers a little bit. I don't think it has a huge impact though, but maybe a slight one. I think really it'll be interesting to see, because I wouldn't expect them to not put out another change in response to this. Like, we're doing away with this thing that's dumb and we're replacing it with this thing that's good in our mind, right? In the administration's mind. In their eyes is a better idea. So we probably don't know exactly what's going to be yet, because we don't know what they're going to do, right? Like, what's their next step in connection with this. But I would think if let's say nothing changes, right, from now going until AEP, and that's the only change they make,
Right.
I think we'll probably see an AEP, because we still have the Inflation Reduction Act, where there's slight deteriorations of benefits. I think it's a multi-year thing of the deterioration of benefits pulling back. But a lot can happen from now until then. And, who knows what they put out in addition to this. But this by itself, I don't think moves the needle a ton.
Yeah, I think it might slow the bleeding down a little bit, right? As far as the cash flow for these major healthcare providers here in the U.S. I think maybe what's bigger to take away from this is that the writing's on the wall that change is coming. The new administration's been in for less than a few days, right? And they're already taking shots at.
They're on the ball.
They're so. And again, we talked about this before the inauguration. Once we realized there was going to be a change at the presidential level and how that could affect the industry. And I think this is the start. But will this by itself make any major moves, major changes? No. And I do think there's a lot of misinformation going around right now. Like you said, there's agents, and I've seen several posts in several different groups of agents saying, oh, the Inflation Reduction Act's gone. It's no more. And it's like, no. And again, that was passed into law by Congress. And this is just an executive order. There's some overlap, but like Christian just said a moment ago, the vast majority of what was in the Inflation Reduction Act, it's still here.
Yeah. I think, man, there's so many things that I want to say about this, but I don't want to piss off the audience.
That's the governor of Utah, everybody. Governor Brindle. Brindle Nation.
No, I think, I think getting back to what we were talking about, that I think is relevant here about the media, and the 10-second headlines and everything like that. I think what you'll see is two vastly different stories, right? A lot of the media is going to be reporting that the new administration cut these things, allowing insurance companies to go nuts in terms of what they're charging in copays, and now beneficiaries are going to suffer and they're going to die in the streets, right? Like, that is going to be a headline, more or less.
Probably.
I think our and again, our media has no understanding of insurance either. You could tell by the United Healthcare hit pieces they've been doing, right? They don't have much of an understanding either. They're just reading teleprompters, reading headlines themselves from other news outlets and things like that. And they're so corrupt. I think, in my opinion, guys, like, I don't really watch news at all. I refuse. Very rarely will I ever watch any type of news media. I will try to get as much of my news as possible from social media. And I try to get it from different people that are on different ends of the spectrum, so I can kind of see the forest through the trees. But like, I think
What's interesting about that, the community notes on X,
I
right?
love that. Yeah.
Right. Well, and it was so successful that Zuckerberg's adopting it. I just
Yes.
listened to Zuckerberg talk about it. He basically was like, you know what? We were trying to like fact check everything. We were
I
trying to police you guys. And he's like, we were wrong. I
I
loved that. I was like, thank you, Mark. I'm like,
I
thank you for
I
saying that.
I think he's trying to save his ass a little bit.
Bravo. There
If
was a
I'm being
lot.
perfectly
Oh, there
honest.
was a lot of self-preservation on that podcast
But
episode for
I
sure.
found that aspect of it interesting because he said we're going to be implementing community notes like X is doing. He basically just
Yeah.
specifically said we want to do it like the way they're doing it, which is interesting because those two guys, they don't have a history of love for each other really
No, they do
that
not.
much.
But I love the idea
We never did
of
get the MMA fight.
no, I wish we did. Maybe we still will. Maybe during the new administration. Let's get it done at the White House. Let's get Zuckerberg and Musk, Oval Office, get the ring in there. But no, I love the idea of the hive mind, right? Kind of tearing down some of these bigger topics because there's people much smarter than me. You've got people checking other people, and that's what I love about that community aspect when there's these big headlines like this. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
Good show, everyone. Let's move on to final thoughts. And I'll go first, I guess. So, final
Yes.
thoughts, you guys.
President Brindle, final thoughts.
There's a lot to come, I feel, in terms of what's going to be. Just wait till the guy over Glen's shoulder gets his footing too in his new role. Like, I think we're going to see several things coming, and I'm optimistic that they'll be positive. For us in particular. I had a dream the other night that Oz goes
Whoa.
in. I dreamed
No,
about
you
Oz.
didn't. No, you did not. You did not.
And
How did you not tell me this?
Oz goes in, right?
I
And
work
like
with this dude every day.
he's
Your
30 days
dreams about
in, right, to his new role, and something comes across his desk that they're in this lawsuit about final rule last year. He's going through this he's like, what is this? He's like, this is ridiculous. Like, we're spending money on this lawsuit, just throwing it away.
Oh,
right.
Could you imagine? That would be amazing.
And so I think there's going to be a lot that happens, I believe, in the next probably 3 to 6 months. And we'll be reporting on it on this podcast, on this platform for you guys.
Yes.
But yeah, I think, my thoughts are, as of right now, be an educator, understand what's going on, and pay close attention to what's to come, because I feel like we haven't seen the last of the domino effects.
Yeah, I totally agree. Guys, my final thoughts today, and before I get into that, I do want to mention Freebie Friday, which is happening tomorrow. Hashtag Freebie Friday. All you have to do to enter into our weekly giveaway is comment on one of the live streams or all of the live streams from this current week. So we are wrapping up our 4th episode of the week. It is episode 41, 42, 43, and today is 44. Every live stream here in the 7-Figure Medicare Agent Facebook group that you comment on qualifies as one entry into the giveaway that we will be doing by end of day Friday. With the Turning 65 lead promotion that we have going on at Lead Heroes, we are going to run back what we did last week, and we'll have multiple winners of Turning 65 leads that we will announce tomorrow. So easy way to get some free leads, you guys. Just comment on one of the live streams from this week here in the group. My final thoughts on today's episode, which I really enjoyed this episode. And, guys, what Christian and I really want to do is, and historically we've done this before, is we really want to just try to keep everyone as informed as possible. When something big comes down the road, we want to get the information out to you guys, because there is so much misinformation, so much chatter, so many people saying things that isn't true. And this was, just the start, in my opinion. This is the tip of the iceberg. I think what we're going to see is a lot more change. Again, I'm hoping for positive changes. But ultimately, stay tuned. That's really my final thought, is stay tuned. I'm sure we'll see a lot more in the coming months. And Mehmet, we're waiting on you, bud. Don't just show up in Christian's dreams. Show up in real life and obliterate Final Rule. Imagine if it happens. It's like 30 days in, he obliterates. It's like, Christian, you saw the future.
The sorcerer.
Yes, you're a sorcerer. You're a sorcerer. We need to get you an actual crystal ball. You can be like on the pod. You'd be like, "Oh, you want me to speculate?"
You know those ones that kids play with all the time, and you put your finger on it, and like the lightning bolt goes.
Oh, yeah, that's it. I'm gonna send one to you. That would be great. That's what we need.
Guys, thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. We appreciate your support. Do us a favor, as always, if you're watching on a platform that allows you to do so, comment #Team Replay if you're watching the replay. Subscribe on platforms like YouTube, Apple Podcasts. Leave us 5-star reviews on platforms like Apple Podcasts. Subscribe on Spotify, wherever you might be listening to us on. And we'll be back next time with another jam-packed episode of the 7 Figures or Bust podcast. Here's to your guys' massive success. Thanks, everybody.